What's going on, everyone? It's the My Aggie Nation podcast. We're back. It's game week. It's game week. A&M takes on Kent State to kick off Jimbo Fisher's fourth season today. I'm Travis Brown with the Eagle. Over there, Alex Miller of the Eagle as well. What's going on, Alex?
Hey, Travis. Doing pretty well.
And our intrepid other co-host at WTAW, Zach Taylor.
What's going on, guys? I like that new headset, Alex. It looks like you're about to rock some newbies at Call of Duty or something. Pretty awesome.
Hey, I'll have you know, I played Fortnite a couple nights ago for the first time in like 2 years, and I had 2 kills and placed 8th. So
I didn't know fork knife was still a thing.
It definitely is. Didn't take home that victory royale, but hey, I did better than I thought I would. So there you go.
Your kid started playing Fortnite yet, Zach?
No, not yet. He'll
Okay.
graduate up to that next week. This week is Mario Kart.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we have some football to break down. I guess first, before we get into Kent State and A&M's first battle of the season, the Board of Regents, the Texas A&M University System Board of Regents, just voted unanimously to extend the contract of one John James Fisher, the terms of which were sent out here by Texas A&M. It'll be a raise to $9 million starting on January 1, 2022, will increase to $9.15 million January 1, 2023, and then will increase $100,000 each year following that. And it's a 4-year extension onto the already 10-year $7.15 million that he got when he first came to A&M 3 years ago. So, gentlemen, what is this? Why extend Jimbo right now? Is this a good move? Is this a bad move? What's your take, Zach?
Well, I mean, it was coming out to that kind of year. They also had to approve a lot of his assistants last week. And so it wasn't like they just pulled this out of left field and were saying, hey, this is something we got to get done. Or there might have been some other callers out there for Jimbo Fisher services, even though I'm sure that there have been and there will be even after this contract is signed. But hey, if you got the money and you got the time, then go for it. And if you're A&M,
if you've got the money,
honey, I got time.
Okay, yeah.
We'll go signing Jimbo to a big old fat contract. And that's what they did. That's what they did. And I mean, like I said, you got the money and you can flaunt it and you can say, look, this is going to be our coach for the next however many years. I know the extension added 4 more years onto it, so he signed up through 2031. I don't know if it's going to be, I'm assuming it's the same kind of deals that they had before and that it's guaranteed. So it's not like Jimbo has to give any money back if he were to go, I don't know, if something were to happen or if he were to get fired or whatever. But hey, if you got the money, and it's only going to go up from here, folks. I don't know why people are sitting there wringing their hands thinking, oh my gosh, $9 million for Jimbo Fisher. It's only going to go up. And I get that the proof is not necessarily there. He is not Nick Saban. He has not won a national championship at his current school, but A&M has that kind of cash and they want Jimbo Fisher to be an Aggie for a long time. So backed up the Brinks truck, what have you, and he's getting paid.
Yeah, I don't think it's the wrong move, but it may seem a little premature. I mean, here's the deal. He was hired in 2017 to come win a championship. He was given the huge, fully guaranteed contract that everybody talks about and it has been talking about ever since he's been hired. A&M won an Orange Bowl last year, which was very successful as far as A&M standards go. But is that a championship? No. So that's why I think it may be just a little premature. Had A&M won at least the division this season, and then, okay, maybe the first or second week of January, we're seeing Jimbo getting this kind of deal. That makes total sense to me because he would have actually delivered. Now the stakes are raised even higher. I feel like Travis, we were talking about this earlier, but if you don't go and win this championship or a championship, I mean, one, the initial contract seems to have been kind of a flop, but now even anteing it up and extending it even further seems like maybe even a bigger one. But like Zach said, A&M's on the right trajectory. It seems as if that's going to happen as soon as potentially this year. It did seem just a little premature, in my opinion, though, to give him this kind of extension.
I know each year one team wins a national championship and one team wins an SEC championship. And a lot of times that has been Alabama, which is in the exact same division as A&M. So yes, you can say a ton of times Jimbo Fisher was hired to beat Alabama, to win conference championships, to win national championships. But with the state of how college football is right now, if you have a coach that you've seen consistent improvement with, and who by all accounts and by all prospects seem like he's going to be a coach that will have A&M right there in the conversation on the precipice of the playoff every year. In all reality, in today's college football, is that kind of all you can ask for? I mean, is that the reaction to this? Because you can definitely get a lot worse. I mean, look at programs like Tennessee, look at programs like Nebraska, who are blue chips. Look at Michigan, teams that are blue chip, blue bloods, who just kind of haven't been able to find that right coaching fit. A&M has their coaching fit. They're in the conversation. They're on national TV games. They're in the SEC. I think that in today's college football, it might be a little bit less about the conference title wins and the national championship wins as much as relevancy and being in the conversation every time.
Right. And that's why I think you can justify making this move right now, because the sustainability of A&M is probably pretty high. The way recruiting is going, A&M is going to have top tier talent for at least the next 3 to 4 years. I'm curious to see how the whole scheduling thing shakes out with Texas and OU joining the SEC. We don't even know, they say they're not joining till 2025. We'll see what happens there. Does Alabama come off A&M's schedule every year if they go to some sort of maybe pod system? How does that change how the schedule is, and Alabama being a constant hurdle that A&M has to get over to make the SEC championship game every single season? So yeah, I think the sustainability, like you said, Travis, is why you can justify a move right now, even if you don't have a championship to hang on the shelf yet.
Well, and as far as building the brand too, I think that kind of goes along with what you guys are saying, and the fact that Jimbo Fisher has put Texas A&M in those conversations, talking about the national championship. And I mean, we would be remiss if we would say that, hey, the powers that be at A&M don't really know how to act whenever they're kind of the top dog on the street. You know what I mean? I mean, they hadn't really been in this position before. And, I should say Alex made mention that it might have been a little premature. I would totally agree with that. They also signed Kevin Sumlin to a big extension after year one with Johnny Manziel, and that came back to bite them. Obviously, this is quite a bit more money. You do have a more proven coach, however, who has done it at a previous school. At this point, though, it's almost monopoly money. It really is. Like for A&M, schools like Texas A&M and Michigan and Texas and Alabama, it's kind of more or less, hey, name your price, we'll match it, whatever. We'll throw as much money at you as we can because we got more money than we know what to do with. And that's basically what it's boiled down to. They don't have to wait for results. They want to go ahead and pay the coach that they think is going to bring them back to prominence, or to prominence for the first time since 1939, looking for a national championship. Not saying being in the conversation. A&M has done that plenty of time, but as far as getting a title for the first time since 1939, they think they've got the guy in Jimbo Fisher, and they've got the money. So as I said, you got it, might as well spend it.
Zach, I have to stop this down real quick and ask, for those of you listening to the podcast, we have a Zoom going here, and I have to kind of look on the desk. Is that a pair of whitey tighties on the desk behind you? What?
Where?
On this paper?
That's a mask.
No. Oh, it's a mask. Okay.
This is my.
Oh, okay.
My office. The office spread these out once the pandemic hit initially. The office. This is my official Brian Broadcasting diaper / mask that I can wear if I so choose. However, I do not, and I still haven't thrown it away. So
I didn't know if that was just like some touchdown celebration underwear or something like that. Or
no.
Okay, well, anyway, let's go back to this Jimbo Fisher conversation. Alex Miller brought up a good point a little bit ago too. How much of this do you think is reactionary to the fact that LSU came off a not so great season last year. Ed Ogeron kind of either is winning a national championship or somewhat kind of on the hot seat. Could this be preemptive in that the LSU seemingly might be about the only place that you could imagine Jimbo Fisher landing other than A&M?
Yeah, when you look at the landscape of things, if A&M's anting itself up to maybe jockey itself to be in good position versus what other schools could be bidding if they need a new coach, LSU is definitely one of the schools that, another bad season or two, or, if NCAA allegations or other things come down on the Tigers program, LSU could quickly be looking for a coach. All the euphoria of 2019 has kind of dissipated when you think about all the guys that left immediately. A pretty bad season last year. A lot of people are pretty optimistic about LSU coming into this year, but I'm not too certain if I'm buying the hype that others are putting out there. But the big reason Jimbo came to A&M was a lot to do with Scott Woodward. And who's the athletic director at LSU now? Scott Woodward. LSU that is very much the team in Louisiana, as we all know. And that they flirted with Jimbo before they hired Edo, before Les Miles even was fired, when he was maybe going to be fired the first time, and saved his job by beating A&M at Kyle Field. So yeah. The thing though is, when you look at it in a situation where there would be that kind of deal of Jimbo maybe picking between A&M and LSU, you got to look at what the circumstances would be. LSU would either be down, kind of not very good, having consecutive years of not great seasons under Edo, or maybe if allegations come out and they're on probation, that's kind of two big holes to get out of. Whereas you're at A&M, you have the backing, the resources. It seems as if facility upgrades are in the horizon. Why would you leave that kind of situation to go to a place where you're going to have to potentially start from scratch and maybe face some reprimands of things that you weren't even responsible for? So that's why I'm not necessarily sure if this is a preemptive measure to maybe outbid an LSU or what others might say. But if that is the case, you got to look at it how it is.
I'm right along with Alex. If you put your blinders on and say, look, we are not going to look at what has transpired over history, right? We will not look at the history of each program, because LSU obviously has a very storied history. But if you're looking at where the programs are right now and where these teams are stacking up, the trajectory of these schools, obviously some of the things that are going around it, like those NCAA investigations that are currently going on for the Tigers, which would you say is the better job? I mean, if you're taking history away from it right now, if you're a coach and you have your choice between LSU and Texas A&M, they're going to pay you about the same. Ed Ogeron, by the way, was making more than Jimbo Fisher was last year. Ed O was looking here. Actually, he was the second highest paid coach in the nation at over $8.5 million last year. So LSU obviously is able to pony things up for their football program. I don't know if you could say the same thing about everything else. I think the athletics program has plenty of money. But that being said, if you look at it right now, today, not taking, take away the fact that LSU has got this history, where the programs are at right now, I don't know if you say LSU is a better job. Because you do have that stuff that's circling around it. I mean, what does LSU right now have that A&M doesn't, aside from that history?
A lot of times when you talk to high school football coaches, they talk about wanting to coach in the one high school town. LSU is the one college in the state, the one college that matters. And that's the only thing that I can, and I'm not using this as an argument of why he would go. I'm just raising a point. That's the only argument that you have at LSU, is that in that state, everybody is an LSU fan, where there's multiple colleges here. That being said, I don't see Jimbo Fisher bouncing over there. I think that is something to think about, but I don't think that's necessarily why this all took place and why they went ahead and gave him the extension. So let's move on, because there is actual real live football happening this weekend at Kyle Field. They welcome Kent State under the lights for a home opener. What are y'all the most excited about seeing for this game from, I mean, either an Aggie or a Kent State perspective, but I'm thinking it's going to be an A&M perspective.
Go ahead, Alex. I'll let you go first.
I think the obvious is how are things going to look at quarterback? That's the biggest question mark. What's it going to be like? Haynes King won the job. It seemed as if it was a pretty stiff battle all through camp. But what does he bring to the table? How does he fill in the shoes of Kellen Mond and what he left? Much of A&M's success last year came from how Kellen was able to command and dictate that offense well and at a high level. Where can Haynes pick up where Kellen left off? How does he gel with a lot of these guys that are coming back? He's got weapons all over the place. If A&M gets a big, does Zach Calzada get in and get some quality reps? And what does he look like? Knowing Jimbo and his history, Haynes is the guy and is probably going to be the guy unless something terrible happens. But this is a game where you could potentially have your backup get significant amount of snaps in a season where you had a quarterback battle. And as they say, the backup is always one play away from being the starter. And it seems as if A&M's got two good options at quarterback, but Haynes being the starter, what does he bring to the table and what does he actually look like now that he's the starting quarterback for the Aggies?
To that point, before we get to Zach's, this should be a game, if everything goes as planned, that we'll get to see both quarterbacks, because you would think Haynes will see a good majority of the game, but then you'll probably see Zach come in and when they kind of pull the second stringers on, and it will be an interesting well, you can't necessarily compare it apples to apples, because they probably will be going against maybe a second string defense, and it is Kent State, but it'll be interesting to see how the two compare and what the offensives look like with the two quarterbacks in. Zach, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the quarterback plays, but I think a big part of that's going to be how the offensive line plays. And that's going to be really what I'm going to have my eyes glued to, because that's the biggest question mark coming into this season. A&M had some real road pavers last year. A lot of guys went to the NFL. What are they going to do to replace those players? Are you going to have Bryce Foster playing at center, a true freshman going to be out there? You're going to have Deuce Fothery going to be another true freshman, or Matthew Wyckoff going to be out there and getting some meaningful reps at O-line? And how is the pass protection going to be? Not to mention the run protection. Yeah, you've got these great running backs and you've got a quarterback that can pull it down and run with it. But if they're not getting blocks, they're not going to get a lot of yards. And so I think I'm going to be the most interested in seeing how this offensive line does. Again, though, it's hard to tell, because not knocking Kent State, but you are going up against Kent State. I mean, they very well might have the best defensive line in their respective conference, but let's face it, the SEC boasts the best defensive lines of anybody in the country. So we'll get a little taste of what the offensive line, what the O-line is going to look like this year and how well it's going to be able to gel. And I think that's going to be the biggest hurdle to overcome if you want to have a quarterback in Haynes King having a good year.
We've talked about both those things a lot in our different podcasts and things leading up. I'm going to pull some obscure ones. First one, let's start off with, I'm excited to see the pomp and circumstance of college football back, with the bands on the field, with everything being a little bit more back to normal. That's what makes college football. And so I'm excited to see that too. As far as a nuance to that game, I am really excited about seeing what A&M's defensive secondary can do against what was the number one scoring offense in the country in Kent State. And granted, it was an all MAC schedule, and there's a lot to be said about that, but they were able to throw the ball around a lot last year. And so I fully expect the defensive secondary to be good as they were last year, but it'll be an early challenge to get them to see where they are in shaking the rust off and getting back into the season. And that should be pretty exciting as well. Third, for the past 2 years, Seth Small has been the guy kicking, and I think he will be the guy kicking again. But we've started to see Caden Davis stepping in there when things need a little bit more distance. Saw it in the spring game. We saw it a couple times at practice. Interesting to see if we'll have maybe a little bit of rotation or what that looks like. Now, I don't necessarily expect A&M to be kicking a whole bunch of field goals, maybe in garbage time. But as the season progresses, what does that kicking situation look like for the Aggies? That's what I'm looking out for the most in this game.
Yeah, here's one other thing I'm looking. You mentioned the pomp and circumstance, and A&M's doing the whole red, white, and blue out this weekend. That'll be pretty neat to see. Honoring those that we lost in 9/11, and it sounds like they've sold a lot of shirts and been able to coordinate a lot of that really well so far. So that's something that I'm interested to see. We're going to have a pretty full stadium too. Kyle Field was surprisingly loud last year, even with 25,000 people, but hopefully people stay healthy and safe at the game, but it'll be nice to have more of a normal environment again.
For sure. Were either of you at that game? The September 11th game? Zach, you wouldn't have been down here by now. Alex, were you at that?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. The first game I remember going to, and I was like 6 or 7 years old. So now I was like 3 when that happened. So
gotcha.
Okay. I do remember my grandparents talking about it, and obviously you see the pictures. Lots of people have that framed or put on their Facebook pages or whatever. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, I was not down here as of yet. I still had a few years to go. But my grandparents, I believe, were at that ball game.
Mm-hmm. One breakout player that you think is going to have a year this year. Who's the breakout player going to be? Zach?
I am going to say Keith Brown, wide receiver, true freshman. Lots of people have been talking, kind of raving about him this fall camp. And I think he's going to be a pretty talented guy if they can get him the ball. And I think he'll still get some plenty of playing time as an offense, or I should say, as a true freshman on the offense. So, Keith Brown.
Man, Zach, you stole mine. That's who I was gonna say.
You can blame Travis for that because
you're welcome.
To add to your point, I think Keith will be a guy kind of like we saw with Anias his freshman year, where maybe we don't see him a ton in some of the early games as he's still learning that offense, but in the back half of the season, see him implemented more, getting him the ball in certain situations. Here's a guy I'll go with, Edrin Cooper at linebacker. He's a guy that people have continuously raved about throughout the offseason. We've seen him running with the first team here and there. I feel like A&M's got a pretty solid rotation at linebacker when you look at Aaron Hansford, Andre White, and then Cooper. Andre White, he was kind of the go-to backup last year. Seemed to be the heir apparent to Buddy Johnson after he graduated last season. But everything that I've seen, Edrin Cooper, man, he's challenging for that spot, and so I think he's a guy that he's going to make some waves this fall on the defensive side.
My guy, who we talked about a little bit in our post press conference video, Alex, you and I, is offensive lineman Aki Ugumbi, and I said it right because I have a pronunciation guide.
Aki.
No,
it's Aki. It's Aki.
Well, if you look at this pronunciation guide, it says Aki. Okay, Aki. Ackee.
Okay.
It's just not Otaro Laka because that really threw Travis for a loop. Aki.
Thank you, Travis.
Yeah. So I think, he's a freshman. He's stepping in just like Kenyon Green did last year. And I know it's hard to put any emphasis on necessarily what we see in the limited time in practice that we get to see players, but just about every day. He was the stalwart. He was the one guy that you guaranteed was going to be in the first teamers. And Jimbo Fisher raved about him in the summer talking circuit. So he's a guy that I think is going to be able to do some good stuff. I will be excited to see what he brings to the table. Also, Luke Matthews, if he's healthy when he steps up there, just the continuation of that clan and what he'll be able to bring to the table. So a few offensive linemen guys I'm looking forward to. Well,
okay, I have one more question. All right.
Okay.
Who will be the first A&M player to score a touchdown this season?
Oh, now we're just getting into prop bets.
Yes, let's do one more. Let's do one prop bet for the game this week. Who will be the first A&M player to score a touchdown? Zach, you get first pick again, so you can steal my pick probably.
Isaiah Spiller.
And that was going to be my pick.
You see,
I'll go random.
No matter what.
All right,
Alex. Well, you pick yours.
No. I want to go last. You go, Travis.
I'll go a little bit out there, and I'll say Caleb Chapman.
Okay.
That's what Alex was going to say. He was going to say that one too.
Hey, how about this? Haynes King.
There you go.
Quarterback.
There you go.
That could be rushing or passing.
No, that's cheating.
We'll come back to this next week and see. So, and see how well we did. I believe last time I checked, and I'm trying to check a little bit again, the spread on the game is
a lot to a little.
It's about 28.5, 29.5. Let's say 28.5. We don't need to do predictions, I don't think. We'll just do, does Kent State cover?
What was that spread again? Tell me one more time.
28.5.
I say no.
I say yes, but barely.
I'm going to go ahead and say yes, but barely too, because they do bring a pretty good offense in there. I think they'll be able to move the ball a little bit at times.
If anything, there might be a little bit of garbage time in there too. So if it got out of hand, they probably would be going up against second, third string guys. So
I do think they cover, but I don't think there's any way. Of course, A&M is losing this one. Good little tune-up for the Aggies. Well, we'll move on. So next on the My Aggie Nation podcast, Alex, Robert Cessna, and I sat down with Alan Moff of the Record Chronicle up there in Kent to break down a little bit about who A&M's opponent will be. That's next on the My Aggie Nation podcast.